We've talked about my dad's, passing at Daytona multiple times at this table, and when you're put in a position like that, when Austin Dillon crashes into the grandstands, into the fence at Daytona, that was the first race for Rick and Jeff. They talk about this. That was their very first race. They had no idea what to do. They literally both took 2 steps back in the booth because they wanted Rick to know, like, we don't know what to do.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's good. Again, you're not going to learn anything when you're talking. So I think that's when it's incumbent on the play-by-play person to take control and command of the situation. Do not guess and do not theorize except in a general sense of, all right, what usually happens in this case is this happens, then that happens, and we'll wait to see what happens next.
Yeah.
With Ryan Newman, there was so much we couldn't say. We are handcuffed in every one of these situations by the fact that the information flow from NASCAR comes to a screaming halt, and they won't tell you anything.
Right.
The track won't tell you anything. The NASCAR won't tell you anything. Nobody. And that's where, obviously the truck's not going to show replays till we see a driver get out, until we see that he's okay. We're going to wait. In the Newman crash, there were things that we knew based on the response of the people around the car, but no one would confirm for us. And we weren't going to speculate. Mm-hmm. So waiting is hard, especially in live TV. Things keep ticking. Waiting is hard. But I think that's where you fall back on your play-by-play person due to his training to overview the situation and not sugarcoat it and yet not alarm anybody until you have facts.
What about when you have, you can't not make friendships, in this, you can't not have relationships with the drivers and some friendly, some just a working relationship. How do you manage, you're calling a ball in balls or strikes and, when drivers go out there and have contact or whatever, or makes a mistake. Do you have, driver, how do you handle that? How do you handle sort of being biased or non-biased?
The same way you do. This is not Dale Jr., your car owner. This is Dale Jr., the broadcaster. I got my headset on. I got to do this job. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what's your obligation at that time? And when you have a headset on, your obligation is to the fans and to the sport. And it's not to your friendships. Alan Kowicki and I were very good friends. Ricky Rudd and I were good friends. And you develop those friendships over a period of years and a matter of time. Rusty and I are good friends. There are just a lot of people like that. And yes, when you're looking at the rundown, you're going to glance down. You're going to see how they're doing. All right, but you can't call them on the track any different than you call anybody else.
You ever had anybody call you afterwards and say, "Hey, man, why'd you say that?" Or
your dad?
Really?
In a roundabout way.
Yeah.
We're at North Wilkesboro, and it was pretty early in your dad's career, and he had described his driving as short track driving as frammin' and bammin'. That was his phrase. Mm-hmm. Well, I picked it up, used it a lot on the radio. Your dad was exciting to watch on the short tracks. So we're at Wilkesboro. Barney Hall says, "Dale wants to talk to you." I said, "Well, okay, I'll go see him." No, he says, he's over sitting in my Buick in the infield. He says, "Why don't you go over, have a seat, and talk to him?" And your dad says, "You got to quit this frammin' and bammin' stuff." He says, it's you're giving me a bad name. You're giving me a bad reputation. People are upset about the way I'm driving. I said, "Well, Dale," I said, "my obligation is to the radio listeners and to NASCAR and to the sport, and I gotta call, like I see it."
Yeah.
I said, "You're aggressive." He says, "Yeah, man." He says, "But I'm not wrecking people. I'm not dumping people into the fence." He says, I'm moving them out of the way." We had a great talk, and I learned his philosophy of how he drove, and it did adjust what I did as a broadcaster. I wasn't kind to him. If he wrecked somebody, I said he wrecked somebody, okay? But I much more understood what he was trying to accomplish and how he drove than I did before. And again, I thank Barney Hall for that, because Barney was everybody's friend. Mm-hmm. He was agent for a few people too, that nobody knew about, but he had everybody's respect. And yeah, we sorted it out, and we had a great relationship from that point on. And, of course, he went on to do great things, and the fans loved it. It was all good.
Did you like that conversation with Mike Joy? Well, you ought to listen to the entire interview. The Dale Jr. Download is available on all major podcast platforms.